Hiya Six, welcome to day 3 of a 3-day piece of work around the Jabberwocky and trying to evaluate how Lewis Carroll has used language, punctuation to have an impact on us as readers. It's a very creative poem, very well-known poem, and I want you to do something equally creative with it. So I've given you some choices. You can either create a visual and possibly an audio presentation, so you do that on the computer using PowerPoint or similar. Maybe you've got you like to use some kind of storytelling software. Use your storyboard to do that. The alternative is to rewrite the poem as a one-page flash fiction story. Again, you can use your storyboard to help you. You've got that to have the plot line, your plot line, and to add any illustrations. And the last option is that you take the title Jabberwocky, you take your interpretation of the story and you create a new poem of either 7 verses or 8 verses, or 7 verses and the 8th verse being a repeat of the first verse. So you might want to pause there and have a think, what's your instinct? Where do you think you might be taking this out of those 3 project options? So I'm just going to show you a selection of the work that was done by our class, and the defining success here is where the storyboard has a combination of pictures and of writing that tells your story, your interpretation of the poem. That doesn't mean you can't use some of the words from the poem. That would be absolutely fine, but you're trying to create something unique for yourself. So here's one example. Artistically, yep, it's very kind of powerful artistically, visually, with this kind of silhouette form. But again, it's following a sequence. It's got a story both in words and in pictures. And this one again, so you can see really drawing out the wonderful characterization that this person has seen within the poem, but also bringing out some of the vocabulary from the original poem. And the person who storyboarded this similarly is following a sequence. This is fairly dramatic and mildly gory, isn't it? There's one here which sequences certainly the pictures in a simpler style, and I can't see the story there. That's an important part of the success of this piece. Maybe it was written separately, maybe it's being planned and needs to be added on. And a different technique here, rather than using one piece of paper, using separate pieces of paper. But here's some really great interpretations of the story. So I can see this person has had a good look at the extracts that I put on the previous lesson. If you didn't look at that, it does explain some of the potential meanings of the words, just to help you along. And actually, look here, angry. So this author has combined hungry and angry and create their own word. Well done, that's great. So I think we're fairly sure that Jabberwocky is both a classic poem, a well-known poem, and a sense that it has this nonsense verse. Now, as first part of Through the Looking Glass, one of the Alice in Wonderland series, and Alice is in this world where everything is kind of distorted and puzzling and almost back to front. And she comes across this mirror writing just as you did yesterday, and finds that it's a poem, and it's a reflection of the opening verse of the Jabberwocky. So this land that she's in is a kind of dreamscape. It's a kind of dreamland. It's not a real land. So the idea that the poem creates that kind of wispy, unreal, dreamlike image, I think is really quite appropriate. Now, in terms of literature, it's some people think it's one of the greatest nonsense poems within the English language, and some of the words that were kind of just used, words and phrases that we used for this, have kind of found their way into language, and that's why words like galumphing and chortle and beamish was another example. That's why you find those. They've where do words originally come from? So you could say, well chortle was it a nonsense word at that time? And if it was, people will use, someone was chortling, they chortled. So many of the words are playful, and they're just used for this occasion to create the sense of this distorted, dreamlike world. And I thought this was quite fascinating because there's a linguist is someone who looks at language, and this linguist noted that they thought that nonsense poem was a bit inaccurate because the poem relies on distortion of sense rather than no sense. And I like that because it is distorted. It's kind of weird, as you've all discovered. But then so are dreams. And when you read it, and particularly when you reread it and you think about it, in your own mind, it creates a story. Well, in the book, when Alice has finished reading the poem, she gives her own impression. And I wonder how closely your own impression resembles this. It seems very pretty, she said when she'd finished it, but it's rather hard to understand. You see, she didn't like to confess even to herself that she couldn't make it out at all. Somehow it seems to fill my head with ideas, only I don't exactly know what they are. However, somebody killed something. That's clear at any rate. And then this is the other point that I think I really want to kind of share with you, and that is that if Lewis Carroll's intention was to have this idea that, I don't understand it initially. It's not words in the true sense of words that have a meaning to me. But on rereading, it does actually fill your head with ideas of story and ideas of creation. And it fits perfectly with the idea of being part of a dream world. I hope maybe you're coming along with me on this thought. So I'm going to give you a warning now, Year 6. There are some who seek absolute meaning in everything. Now, I'm not disputing that meaning and clarity are important concepts. In science and medicine and engineering, well, a clear sense of meaning is really important. Some will say that literature needs analysis, it needs dissection, it needs interpretation. And I think that's slightly disingenuous because sometimes, maybe often, literature is there to be enjoyed, to bring fun, and to create a sense of the feeling of jubilation. So all I'm saying is, why spoil the creativity and joy that comes from the incredible imagination of, say, a child, perhaps a 10-year-old or 11-year-old child, maybe like yourself. So resist the temptation to erase your thoughts with those of another. Therefore, my pressing advice to you, Year 6, is this. Do not read the glossary of words printed on the next page. Ignore this glossary of Jabberwocky and instead believe in your own ability to share your story. But ultimately, it's up to you. So you can stop watching now, or you can take the risk. What did you decide to do? Have fun, enjoy whichever of the presentations that you're going to do, the ICT, the one-page story, or create your own poem. Have fun and take care. See you next time.